On my birthday, I got a text from my son. We're busy with Emma's family. Let's celebrate yours next year. People often ask, how could a mother quietly walk away from the very home she built with her youth? I didn't walk away. I just couldn't stay. Not in a place where my presence had started to feel like a burden. My name is Evelyn, 72, widow. I live in a small coastal town in Maine with my son Derek, his wife Elise, and my granddaughter Emma. For years I got used to making dinners no one touched, storing cakes in the fridge no one asked about, teaching Emma to be honest and kind, only to be told I was outdated. Elise wanted Emma to stand out, win scholarships, make her mark. All I wanted was for her to be herself. But in that house, my words were often drowned out by the sound of a door shutting. If you've ever felt yourself slowly fading from your own family, leave a comment below. Maybe you're not the only one. This isn't just the story of a mother quietly leaving the home she once protected with everything she had. It's about something deeper. What made her choose to disappear on Christmas, and why that choice changed the family forever. The story I'm about to tell is real. It's the journey of how I stepped out of the house they called home to finally return to myself. And it all began on what seemed like any other day, my birthday. On my birthday, the only message I got said, "We're with Emma at her friend's. Rain check for next year." Okay. I set the phone down on the wooden table. No bang. Just a slow, quiet breath. The cinnamon apple pie had just cooled. The crust had cracked slightly at the edges, but the scent was still warm, still sweet. I'd planned to place it on the table alongside the red linen I'd ironed that morning. Red bricks under old wood, soft yellow light overhead, a glass jar with a few sprigs of juniper. I'd imagined a simple dinner. A few familiar faces, a few kind words. I didn't ask for much, but that hope was undone by a message with fewer than 20 words. I didn't reply, didn't delete it either. I just stood there for a long time, as if waiting for a second message. A follow-up, an explanation, even a hint of hesitation in their tone. But nothing came. Nothing came at all. I folded the cloth neatly and tucked it into the drawer, wrapped the pie in wax paper, and slid it into the fridge. The house was silent. Elise and Derek had left early, said they were stopping by Emma's friend's place, then heading to Elise's parents'. Busy tonight, that's all they said. Emma had texted, "Sorry, Grandma. I'll make it up to you." She added a sad face sticker. A sticker. I didn't blame her. She's 17, caught between a quiet grandmother and a controlling mother. At least she tried. That was enough. I put on my coat, each movement slow, deliberate, as if my body needed time to accept that there was nothing left to wait for. The wind hissed outside the door. I pulled my collar up and stepped into the street. Snow dusted the town, like powdered salt, clinging to car rooftops. People were already hanging Christmas lights, red and gold, twinkling in white window frames, small pine trees, still wrapped in plastic netting. No one laughed loudly, but the air felt warm, the kind of warmth that comes from having someone to go home to. I wasn't going far, just to the cafe near the library. Claire owns it. She was in my English class, back in school. She always remembers my birthday. Every year, one free decaf. A quiet, happy birthday, Ev. She didn't ask why I was alone. Just poured the coffee, added a slice of pecan loaf. Homemade, she said. I nodded. My table looked out to the street. A little boy was hopping over a puddle, holding a donut sugar smeared across his cheeks. His grandmother called after him, "Don't run too far," worried but happy. I sipped the coffee, my hand stiff, my eyes not as sharp as they used to be. But that familiar bitterness still held the memory. I used to bring Emma here when she was little. We'd sit at this very table. She loved the cinnamon rolls, always asked for extra syrup. Later, Elise put a stop to it, said sweets were bad for kids, said this cafe wasn't the place for children. So I stopped. I didn't push. I came home just before 6. The sky had gone gray. A dim band of light stretched across the kitchen table through the window. I didn't turn on the light. My shadow fell against the kitchen wall, old and still. The cinnamon scent was fading. I opened the fridge, took the pie out, placed it on the table, and stared at it for a while. Not out of hunger, just habit. Something solid to look at, so I wouldn't have to look at myself. I reached for the plastic cake box, lifted the lid, thought about writing Emma's name on a note, then hesitated. My hands were shaking not from age, but because I wasn't sure the pie would ever be opened. I put it back, then went up to the attic. That's where I keep the old things' wedding photos, hand-knit sweaters, a few boxes of birthday cards Emma made when she was still in elementary school. I pulled over a wooden chair and sat down, surrounded by cold and dust. Wind slipped through the window cracks, stirring the lace curtain. There was a photo of me and Emma when she turned 6. Her hair in pigtails, holding a tiny birthday cake with a number 6 candle. I stood beside her, smiling wide. My eyes were bright, not from the candlelight, but from belief. I didn't cry. I just looked at myself in the photo, then looked at myself now, and wondered, do I still have a place in that house? A quiet question, like a scratch on a mirror, invisible to others, but stinging every time you look. I went back downstairs and set the kettle to boil. Made myself a cup of peppermint tea. The kitchen was still tidy, still spotless, but no one noticed. No one thought about the hands that scrubbed it clean every day. I'm not one to complain. I'm not the type to count what I've done. But I started to realize, when you stay quiet too long, people start to treat your presence as optional. The pie is still there. The fridge still hums. But no one asks about it. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself, if I disappeared, would anyone even notice? She didn't yell at me. Elise never had to. All she needed to do was close the door every time I tried to talk to Emma. The hallway downstairs no longer echoed with small footsteps in the afternoon. I still brewed tea and poured 2 cups, like always. The only difference now, no one touched the other cup. The pie was still in the fridge. I didn't open it anymore. This morning, I found a note Elise had left on the table. Emma needs her own space. Please understand. The handwriting was neat in black ink. No birthday wish. No signature. Just a few lines, like a receipt, clear, emotionless. I still wiped the kitchen counters. Still folded the napkins. The red one, with lace trim, same one I used for Emma's 6th birthday. That year, she smeared frosting all over my face and laughed so hard it echoed. Now the table is still clean, but the seat across from me is empty. One time I walked into Emma's room. Just wanted to ask if she wanted baked ziti for dinner. Elise was there. She stood up and gently closed the door. Didn't say a word. Polite, measured, but enough for me to understand there was no place for me there anymore. I had tried to believe I was still a part of this house, even a small part. A shadow by the stove. A pair of hands that quietly did the laundry. But Elise, she didn't attack head-on. She cleared the space around me, softly, deliberately. And Derek, he stayed the same. Avoidant. A pat on the shoulder every now and then, as if that was enough to call it understanding. That afternoon, I brought up the laundry, and happened to spot an envelope tucked between Emma's notebooks. Handwritten. Curious, I opened it. It was a letter to a creative writing camp, New Hampshire address. Emma had written, "I'm not good at piano. I want to write scripts. I haven't told my mom. My grandma says, do what you love." I sat down on the bed. I didn't know if she'd sent it yet, but the stamp was still unused, and the letter was hidden. That night, I didn't cook anything. Elise had guests from work. They opened white wine, baked seafood, cheese salad. The smell of grilled oysters crept up the stairs, clinging to the curtains and the tablecloth I had just washed. I stayed in my room. No one called for me. I heard Emma excuse herself to go upstairs. A chair scraped softly. A door closed. Silence. I sat there with the letter on my lap, picked up a pen, and wrote a few lines to my granddaughter. "I once dreamed of becoming a nurse. But your grandfather said, 'We don't need another caretaker. Just take care of the kids.' I didn't blame him. But to this day, I wonder, if I hadn't given up back then, would life have turned out differently, Emma? If you still want to write, then write." I wasn't sure if I should give it to her. I placed the note in a plain white envelope. No name on it. The next morning, I slid it under her toast tray, like a note tucked beneath a plate. But Elise came down first. She cleared the tray, poured the orange juice, and no one mentioned the letter. I returned to my room and stood by the window. Outside, the wind was pulling the last few leaves off the trees by the porch. In the distance, I heard the school bus horn. Emma stepped out wearing headphones, a thick coat. She didn't look back. I wanted to run to her, to say something, to take her hand, or at least fix her collar. But I couldn't move. Something held me back, a quiet chain between me and the doorway. I didn't speak, didn't tap on the glass. I just stood there until Emma's shape blurred behind the bus window. That afternoon, I heard her whispering in her room. A video call. "Where's your grandma? She's busy." Her voice wavered. The friend on the other end laughed. "But she tells the best ghost stories." "Go get her," I heard. Emma go silent, then quietly say, "She doesn't live here anymore." I didn't go in. I turned away. I knew she didn't mean it that way, but she'd learned how to choose her words carefully. Elise had taught her well. That night, I thought about going to Emma's room, just to say I'm still here. But when I reached the door, the soft yellow light spilled through the crack. Emma's eyes were swollen. She lay curled up, holding the wooden box, the one where I kept her grandfather's letters. The lid was slightly open, but I didn't knock. I stood there, counting my breaths. Not long after Elise appeared, she gently pulled the door shut. A soft click. I went back to my room, laid down on the bed, left the light on. I used to think the worst thing was being ignored, but now I know it's when people begin to erase you completely. Emma fell in love with a classmate. She told her parents, and the first thing they did was ground her, take her phone, and cut off contact with me. The news didn't arrive in words. It came through absence. No footsteps, no chair moving, no doors opening, just the porch light glowing through the night, with no one stepping outside. I knew something was wrong when I saw the landline unplugged. For the first time in 10 years, I heard the upstairs door lock. Derek changed the Wi-Fi password. Elise sent a single line in the family email. "We need to adjust the environment so Emma can focus on her studies. No contact for now." For now, a soft phrase, used to shut someone out completely. I didn't call, didn't ask. I waited, but no one came down the stairs. On the night of the Christmas Lights Festival, the houses down the street lit up like paintings. The smell of cinnamon burning wood and distant music drifted in from the town square. I sat in the reading room and opened an old photo album. My hands trembled, my eyes blurred, but one picture held me longer than the rest. I was 17, curly hair, a knee-length dress, standing next to an ice cream truck at my old school. I was smiling, but my eyes weren't. Just like Emma's, exactly like hers. Under the pillow in my room, I found a scrap of paper. Pencil written, no punctuation, shaky handwriting. If you still believe in me, don't let me end up like you. I held it all night, didn't fold it, didn't hide it. The next morning, I went to Emma's school. Her teacher said she'd been out for a few days for personal reasons. I asked, "Is she okay?" She lowered her head, didn't answer. I stood outside the school for a long time. Red leaves covered the benches. It wasn't raining, but the air felt like a storm was near. Clara picked me up on the bus. An old friend, the only one I'd kept in touch with after retirement. We didn't talk much. She drove me along the coast. This time of year, fog clings to the rocks. At one point, she stopped, didn't look at me, just said, "Evelyn, maybe it's time you saved yourself." I got home just before 5 p.m. The sky was dimming, like an old photo fading at the edges. Upstairs was quiet. I didn't go up. I went straight to the reading room. The old fireplace cracked softly. In the low light, I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out an old file folder. Some pages still had oil marks. The corners curled slightly from time and moisture. Bank forms, asset authorizations, transfer receipts, retirement statements. I didn't look at the numbers. I looked at the signatures, mine and Derek's, the date, the note, full authorization granted to son. I remembered Derek saying, "It's just for convenience taxes and such." I didn't ask more. Back then, I still believed people wouldn't take advantage of their own mother's trust. I sat at the dining table and took scissors to each page, not to destroy them, but to sort them by date, by order, as if to say, "This has gone on long enough." I reprinted every form, recovered old accounts, changed passwords. I didn't know all the steps, but I found tutorials. I took notes, learned slowly, but carefully. I opened a new bank account in my name only. No sharing, no announcement. That night, I placed the stack of documents on the dining table, not as a declaration of war, but as a reminder to myself I still exist. I brewed tea, sat quietly, didn't turn on the TV. I thought of Emma, of that pencil-written line with no punctuation. "If you still believe in me, don't let me end up like you." I used to think I was protecting my children by staying silent, by stepping back, by swallowing words. Now I know staying silent for too long is a kind of betrayal too. The next morning, Elise passed by the table and caught a glimpse of the folder. She said nothing, but her expression changed. Not surprise, not confusion, calculation. I didn't respond, didn't explain. I went back to my room and reopened the photo album. The photo of me at 17 had slipped loose. I picked it up and looked at it for a long time. Back then, no one stood beside me. And now, no one does either. But this time, I didn't feel alone. I felt myself. I can't save Emma, not if I keep living like a shadow in this house. I've already lost too much by retreating. And now I know, if I don't step out from that shadow, Emma will be swallowed by the same silence that once consumed me. I didn't get angry. I didn't talk back. I simply placed the folder on the table, neatly beside a vase of wilted flowers no one had remembered to refresh. No one was in the kitchen. Derek and Elise had taken Emma out early. Intense exam prep, they'd said. I heard the upstairs door close. No one came downstairs. No one said good morning. No one noticed I had been up for over an hour. I made coffee, decaf, poured half a cup, left it there. On the wooden table, I laid out a pale blue folder. No lock, no string, no note. But inside was something they'd need to read carefully, if they still intended to use the money I once set aside for them. I'd moved all my retirement savings to an independent system, revoked all authorizations, disconnected every shared link with the family accounts. I didn't hide it, didn't announce it. My signature was still steady, clean, unwavering, like the one I signed the day I brought my husband home from the war. It was winter then, too, cold, just like today. I sat down and wrote a letter to Emma. Thick ivory paper, a snowflake embossed in the corner. I'd bought it last year for Christmas cards that no one remembered to ask if I ever received. I used a violet ink pen. Short sentences, no advice, no instructions. Just, this: I'm not leaving you. I just don't want Emma to grow up carrying the same regrets I did. I folded the letter, placed it in an envelope, unsealed, left it beside the photo album. The bag I took wasn't large. A gray wool coat, a photo of him wrapped in a handkerchief, a small ledger, 2 pairs of socks, a pouch of oat cookies, my ID, some cash, not much, just enough to get somewhere without a name. I left the house just as snow began to touch the front steps. The sidewalk was still dry, but not for long. I locked the door, didn't take the spare key. No one saw me leave. No one asked where I was going. No one knew it was the last time I'd step across that threshold as someone who belonged to that house. Clara waited at the end of the street. She didn't wave, just tapped the steering wheel gently when she saw me. No texts, no explanations. Clara understood the way old friends do. No past needed, no future expected. Just a quiet enough reason for neither of us to ask more. I got into the car. The windows fogged. Our breaths collected in droplets. The engine rolled slowly, turning onto a smaller road. I didn't look back, but when the car paused at the intersection, I glanced at the rearview mirror. The house was still there. No lights on, no curtains drawn. I didn't cry. The bus stop was beside the old ceramic shop. The sun hadn't fully risen, but the shop's window reflected a faint yellow glow. The owner, an old man with long gray hair, always opened by 5 a.m. I once bought a green teapot there, the kind with chipped glaze at the rim. He never remembered my name, but always said, "People who drink tea don't need to rush." I sat on the bench by the stop. The bay wind crept through the collar of my coat. I didn't pull up my scarf. I wanted to remember the cold mark, it clearly as the moment I left. Clara didn't say anything else. She sat beside me quietly. One of her wool gloves had a loose thread. I saw her aged hand curled gently underneath. "Haven't decided where yet?" she finally asked. Not pressing, just to fill the breath between us. I nodded. I don't need to know where. I just need to know I won't be staying. The bus was 5 minutes late. A silver, long-distance line. Low steps, few passengers. The driver nodded as I handed him my ticket. I walked down the aisle and chose a window seat. Clara didn't get on. She just touched my shoulder, then turned back toward the old street. I leaned my head against the glass. No one looked for me. No one waved from the house. No messages. No calls. I thought of the folder. Wondered if they'd opened it yet. If Elise realized it was a full revocation of access, or if she dismissed it as some quiet rebellion she could reverse with a few calls. I didn't know. And now I didn't care. On my lap, I held the old bag tightly. Not for fear of money. But because inside was the one piece of memory, I chose to bring a sticky note Emma wrote when she was 9. Grandma is home. She's the place I can breathe. I smiled when I first read it. Now it stings. Outside, the lampposts receded one by one. Their lights faded gently. Maine blurred behind me, like a photograph developed with the wrong focus. And I sat there, still unnamed, still unseen, a figure in motion no one thought to follow. I left no Christmas wishes, because I've stopped waiting to receive any. When they came home, dinner wasn't cooked, the table was bare, and their mother was no longer there. I don't know if it was cold when they opened the door. Maybe it was already dark. Maybe the snow had begun to fall. But in that house, the one I spent my whole life keeping in order, no one put a pot on the stove. No one set out napkins. Dinner, like so many years before, existed only in memory, never in reality. I didn't leave a long letter, just a single page tucked neatly inside the folder, a revocation of account access, a notice that all legal matters had been reassigned to private control, and one short line at the end, I'm well, but I want to live for myself just this once. They didn't call right away. Maybe at first they thought I'd stepped out to buy something. But when they opened the fridge empty, no soup, no pie, no scent of anything, that's when something unfamiliar crept in absence. The very thing I used to bring into that house each day, through silence, was now the thing that frightened them most. Derek called Clara 3 times. No answer. Elise stood staring at the wooden kitchen chair, the one I used to sit in almost every day, cup of tea in hand, eyes on the garden. They had told me, "You can sit there, just don't distract Emma." And I'd nodded. Back then, I thought being allowed to sit was enough. This time, Elise said nothing. No sharp words, not even a sigh. Emma came downstairs, music theory notebook still in hand. She didn't ask, "Where's Grandma?" Didn't cry, didn't panic. She just said softly, like a breeze slipping through a cracked door. Did she say anything to me? No one answered. Where I am now, there's not much noise. It's a small wooden house deep in a pine forest. Clara found it back when her husband was still alive. The owner has since passed. His nephew rents it out cheap, no questions, no paperwork, just quiet. Clara brought a few things: whole grain bread, homemade jam, a hand-drawn map of local bookstores. She didn't ask why I left, just said, "If you want, I can leave you the spare key." I nodded. In my bag was a photo of my husband, back when he worked at the lighthouse, and a smaller photo, me and Emma, from a state park camping trip. My hair a mess, her shirt stained with ice cream. Both of us laughing until our faces wrinkled. I taped that photo onto a card, wrote one line on the back, "If one day no one is stopping, you come find me." I sent it just to Emma. No other words. Elise found the envelope first. Probably because Emma's name was handwritten in my handwriting, this time steady. Derek opened the larger letter. When he got to the final line, I could picture his hand freezing, then slamming it on the table. He had never read his mother's letters carefully, but now he had to. In the letter, I didn't accuse, didn't scold. I just listed 1. Bank accounts are no longer linked to the family. 2. All legal decisions are now protected under personal counsel. Any disputes will go through my lawyer. 3. I'm not coming back, Elise shouted. So that's it. She's cutting us off. Just like that, no one responded. Emma stood still holding the card. Read the words on the back of the photo, then folded it, tucked it into her coat pocket. That night, no one cooked. Derek rummaged the cupboard, pulled out a can of soup. But the gas had been turned off. I forgot to mention that. I did it that morning, like I always did, turning the valve, to off wiping the burners with a cloth. Same routine as ever. Elise opened the fridge. Nothing but a little milk and an old container of apples. Cold air and silence. The house hadn't changed. But without me in it, everything felt hollow. They asked Clara where I was, but she just shrugged. She's gone. Gone to live. And I used to be the one waiting at the dinner table. Now I'm the only one invited by myself. For the first time in years, I turned on the radio without lowering the volume out of fear of disturbing anyone. The music played just loud enough, not overpowering, not whispering. White Christmas. Still the old version, the familiar voice, the slight tremble in the chorus. Elise used to frown at it. She would say, "That song's too old. Emma needs quiet to study." I used to turn it off, automatically, like switching off a light when leaving the room. But today, I am no longer in that house. This kitchen now belongs to me, fully. No need to ask, no need for permission. I poured tea, cinnamon and honey. The scent spread slowly, like snow, brushing against the wooden window frame. Outside, the sky was pale white, the pine forest blurred in soft fog. Inside, yellow lamplight and the quiet crackle of the fire. No one coming, no one leaving. I hung a woolen stocking above the heater, an old one. Emma had started knitting it one year, then forgotten about it. I washed it, let it dry on the windowsill, folded the cuff neatly. Inside, I placed a few red-wrapped candies, the kind she once begged for at a Christmas market when she was small. Just placed them there, not waiting. I picked up a picture frame, a photo of the two of us under the oak tree that year, and placed it beside a new wooden frame. Simple. No decoration. Inside, there's nothing. Just space. If she ever comes, she can write the first letter herself. I turned on the heater. It clanked for a moment, then settled. The wind howled through the doorframe, but not hard enough to make me cold. I used to think that being alone on Christmas was something to fear. But I've learned what's worse, being surrounded by people who no longer see you. I didn't turn on the porch light. Not out of anger. Not to make anyone feel sorry. Just because, for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anyone to come home. The pie I reheated from yesterday had a tougher crust, but the apple cinnamon filling still smelled sweet. I cut a small slice, placed it on a cracked ceramic plate. Didn't rush to eat, just left it there across from my teacup, as if I were still sharing dinner with someone, but this time it was with myself. I made one phone call, didn't talk long. I said, "I'm okay. Don't come looking. But if Emma ever needs," the door is open. Then I hung up. No waiting for a reply. No need for anyone to agree with my choice anymore. Outside, the snow kept falling. I pulled the curtains and sat near the window. In my hands was the old photo, me at 17. Braids in my hair, eyes steady. Emma once asked me, "Grandma, did you ever do what you really wanted?" I had only smiled. Now I know the answer. I didn't win anything, didn't take back what was lost. I simply chose to stop needing permission, to live for myself. Slow, but certain. Quiet, but true. I used to believe that sacrifice was love. But now I understand, if you don't learn to value yourself, even the ones you love can turn away. For the first time in years, I no longer set a place at the table for anyone else. Just one cup, one slice of cake, and a quiet that feels just right. Not because I'm lonely, but because I no longer feel unnecessary. Some people spend their whole lives giving, but forget one simple truth: if you don't learn to value yourself, even love can grow cold. Like an old sweater that once kept the whole family warm through winter. then tucked away in a drawer, unthanked, once no one feels cold anymore. If you've ever stayed quiet, so you wouldn't disturb anyone, if you've ever stepped back, so someone else could move forward, maybe today is the time to ask, do I still have space in my own life? And if this story touches something in you, share it with someone else who might also be searching for their voice again.